No arrest teams. No handcuffs. No prison cell. And yet, one of the world's sitting presidents is treated as if he's already guilty. Restricted travel, frozen assets, sanctions tightening year after year. This isn't regime change by invasion. It's pressure by law, money, and isolation. Tonight, we break down why the United States wants Venezuela's president behind bars and why this fight has nothing to do with justice alone. Welcome to Silent Conflict. This story isn't about a dramatic arrest. It's about why an arrest hasn't happened yet. It's about how modern superpowers pursue leaders they can't legally touch, and how pressure replaces warfare. To understand this conflict, we have to follow 4 threads: sanctions, drug trafficking accusations, human rights violations, and geopolitics. Together, they form a quiet campaign, a siege conducted not with soldiers, but with spreadsheets and legal documents. The United States didn't start with criminal charges. It started with sanctions. Financial restrictions that turn Venezuela's economy into a pressure cooker. Think about it. A nation's entire economic engine suddenly sputtering to a halt. Oil revenues, the lifeblood of the country, were cut off. Access to international banking was severely limited. Foreign assets, worth billions, were frozen solid. To Washington, these sanctions were a form of leverage, a way to force a change in behavior without firing a single shot. To Caracas, they were nothing short of economic warfare, a deliberate attempt to strangle the country and its people. But here's the key detail most people miss. Sanctions weren't just about punishment. They were about containment. By isolating Venezuela's leadership financially, the U.S. didn't actually need to arrest anyone. It simply made the act of governing, of holding on to power, incredibly difficult. Every day became a struggle for survival. The prison wasn't made of steel bars. It was made of financial ledgers and blocked transactions. Then came the most explosive move. The president of Venezuela, along with a circle of senior officials, was formally accused of narcoterrorism by U.S. federal prosecutors. The claim was staggering, that the machinery of the state itself was being used to facilitate drug trafficking into the United States, effectively undermining American security from within. This wasn't a symbolic gesture or a political statement. This was legal. Indictments were unsealed. Formal charges were filed. Rewards, in the millions of dollars, were offered for information leading to their capture. In the eyes of U.S. law, this placed a sitting foreign president in the same category as the world's most notorious cartel leaders. But here's the fundamental problem. You can charge a president. You can't easily arrest one, not without collapsing what's left of diplomacy, or worse, triggering a war. The indictment was a powerful legal weapon, but one that couldn't be fully deployed without risking catastrophic consequences. So it sat there, a constant, looming threat. But legal charges alone don't move global opinion. To win the bigger battle for international support, the narrative had to widen. It couldn't just be about crime. It had to be about morality. Human rights organizations, both local and international, began to document a disturbing pattern. Political arrests of opposition figures, the violent suppression of protests, credible allegations of torture in detention centers, and repeated election irregularities that cast doubt on the government's legitimacy. To Washington, this completely reframed the issue. This wasn't just a criminal case against a few individuals anymore. It became a moral case against an entire regime. A case that justified pressure not just from the U.S., but from its allies across Europe and Latin America. And so, the sanctions multiplied. Travel restrictions spread, creating a blacklist that trapped officials within their own borders. International isolation deepened, turning Venezuela into a pariah state. The goal was no longer just about an arrest. It was about legitimacy collapse. To make the government so toxic on the world stage that its own foundation would begin to crumble from within. So, with all these pressure sanctions, indictments, moral condemnation, why hasn't an arrest happened? Because arresting a sitting head of state is one of the most dangerous and complex acts in all of international politics. It's a geopolitical landmine. It requires a perfect storm of conditions. A foreign location the target is willing to visit, a host nation compliant enough to execute the arrest, the full backing of military or intelligence assets to secure the operation, and broad political consensus at home and abroad that the risk is worth the reward. One mistake, one miscalculation, could spark regional instability, a proxy conflict, or an all-out war. Instead of taking that gamble, the U.S. and its allies chose a slower, more methodical approach. Constrain their movement, limit their allies, cut off their money, and wait. The arrest itself isn't the primary weapon. The threat of it is. It's a sword of Damocles hanging over the regime, designed to shape every decision and limit every option. This entire conflict isn't just about Venezuela. It's happening on a much larger chessboard. Venezuela sits at a critical crossroads of global power dynamics. You have Russian influence, propping up an allied government in America's backyard. You have massive Chinese investment in oil and infrastructure, securing resources for Beijing's future. You have Iranian partnerships, building an anti-U.S. coalition. And all of this is challenging traditional U.S. regional dominance. Every move Washington makes against Caracas sends a message far beyond the Caribbean. It's a signal to Moscow, to Beijing, to Tehran, and to any other nation that might defy the established order. If a sanctioned leader like Venezuela's can survive this immense pressure, it proves that defiance is possible. Others will be emboldened to follow. But if the government collapses, the precedent echoes globally, demonstrating the long reach of American power. This isn't just justice versus crime. It's power versus defiance. So what happens next? How does this end? Realistically, there are only 3 possible endings, and none of them are clean or peaceful. First, a negotiated exit, where the president and his inner circle are given a safe haven in another country in exchange for stepping down. Second, an internal collapse, where the economic and political pressure finally becomes too much, leading to a coup or a popular uprising. Or a third, a moment of opportunity, a crisis, a mistake, a desperate move that finally provides the circumstances needed for an arrest to take place. All of these paths are fraught with danger and uncertainty, and all of them take time, because modern conflicts aren't resolved quickly with decisive battles. They are managed quietly, over years, even decades. In the end, the United States doesn't need to storm a palace. It just needs to make leadership unsustainable. No sirens, no invasion, no headlines screaming war. Juste slow grinding, relentless application of pressure, isolation, and patience. This is how power is dismantled now. Welcome to Silent Conflict. If you want more dark, factual geopolitical breakdowns, where silence matters as much as the explosion, subscribe to Silent Conflict. Stay informed. Stay informed and stay safe.